All right. It looks like we are live. I cannot believe that we are actually here. So, hi everyone. This is Junior Lara with Auténtico Podcast. Super excited to be coming to you from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And boy, do we have a topic for you. But before we get to that, let's introduce the very own Gabriela Ramirez Arellano. Gabi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How is everybody?
Good, good. Awesome. Feeling auténtico today. Feeling fantastic. We have some amazing guests joining us today. First up is going to be Izzy Polanco. Izzy, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm great. It's just happy to be here.
Awesome. We're happy that you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
And we also have Carlos Restrepo. Carlos, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'd rather be inside than outside, so I'm good.
Well, thank goodness we're inside then.
Right.
Carlos told me, like, you better hurry up and wrap this up quick because I've got somewhere to be.
Yeah. Leah's making dinner, so.
All right. So let's get this show started. So we actually have an amazing topic that we're going to be sharing with you guys today. One topic that, unfortunately, we are all affected by, but also we have some insight that we're going to be talking about from our guests and see how they handle things when they come up. So, Gabby, what's our topic for today?
So today we're talking about failing forward and embracing failure, and I'm really excited to have both Izzy and Carlos because I know they have amazing stories. So, do you want to give everybody a little glimpse of Izzy and Carlos' story?
Absolutely. So, Izzy, let's start with Izzy first. Izzy is a ¿cómo se dice?
Patriota.
Compatriota mía.
Compatriota de la República Dominicana.
Exacto. Born in the Dominican Republic. She came to the U.S. at the age of 13, right? And from a very young age, you knew there was something that you wanted to work on that related to your business, right? To starting your own business. So you had a daughter who was born in St. Louis, was it?
Yeah, she was born here. Yeah, I am not from St. Louis. I'm a transplant, but I've learned to love the city now. It has a lot to offer. So.
I think just about everyone that we meet so far, Gabi, like that we've met, is a transplant of St. Louis.
And
So
they always
there's-
love it now.
Yeah, it's a little hard at first. I'm not going to lie, but it gets better.
Awesome. So a little bit about Izzy. You says here that your main focus is our Get Found STL clients. Can I just say that like our logo, which I'm going to switch to that right now, but you can see it on the screen now, but there it is right there. Our logo was created by Mark and Izzy at Get Found STL. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you so much for being so patient with us.
No. Thank you guys for letting us collaborate and help you guys out as well.
Awesome. And it says here that you're proud to be part of their blooming story. So who's their blooming story? Who are you referring to? Your clients?
I'm referring to the clients, yes. I just feel like we are different in a way that we're actually interested in our clients. We're actually interested in listening to their story. And, we're not just there to get their money. We're actually there to help them. And when we see a client that flourishes, it makes us proud. We're interested in small businesses and actually listening to what is it that their needs are. A lot of times businesses don't get the attention that they deserve. And that's something that we're proud of. And it's nice to see the development of those clients or businesses.
Yeah.
Y me encanta porque Izzy también habla español, así es de que
Claro,
si alguien
sí.
tiene ideas o necesita ayuda con su marca, definitivamente también les pueden ayudar.
Exacto.
Así es.
Sí, yo me recuerdo que cuando empezamos inicialmente, like we really didn't know where to go with our logo. Like we kind of had an idea. I mean, we definitely had a name by then, right? But we just didn't know what we wanted our logo to look like. So I really appreciate the support that we got from you guys in helping us, kind of like come to where we are right now with our logos and just the high quality files you guys provide us are really, really valuable to us. So thank you again for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so next up, it's going to be Carlos Restrepo. Carlos is...
He's got a great smile, by the way. I just wanted to
Yeah,
say that.
I love that.
I love it. Can you,
You
get
guys
that
make
rub
me
off
laugh.
on me? He's smiling.
Stop
I love
it.
Ya le dio pena.
Now he's the same color as his shirt. You see what you did?
No, what I mean is it's more the the vibe.
It's
My
a welcoming
friends-
smile,
yeah,
isn't
it's a
it?
My
welcoming
friends used to
smile.
call
Yeah.
me Rosado
¿Cómo
when I was
fue?
in Colombia because my chicks
Rosado.
would get like pink all the time.
¿Tú?
Yeah.
Te decían rosado allá.
Decían Rosado.
Oye, ya
Just
sabemos.
the mean kids.
The mean
Okay,
kids?
so
Yeah.
we're not gonna talk.
So let's not call him that. So Carlos is a bilingual communicator, graphic designer, freelance journalist, translation specialist, and public relations professional, committed to the betterment of the Hispanic and immigrant communities in St. Louis and beyond. Carlos, can you tell us what that means?
Sure, and I'm also the membership manager of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Let's
which
not
is
forget
my-
about that.
That's my full-time job. Pays the bills.
Yes.
Yeah, I went. So when I came to the U.S. and I was in school, I had an English teacher, and I came here when I was 15, and I was a sophomore in high school, and I really did not think my English was very good. But I had this English teacher. Her name is Emily Jorgensen, and she was like, "You should come to our newspaper." And I was like, "There's no way. There's no way I can write." And she was like, "No, I'm going to send your parents a letter inviting you to come to the newspaper. I think you should really do it." So I did it, and I just fell in love with it almost immediately. It was so amazing. My English was terrible. Sometimes I look at the things I wrote back then, and it was really awful, but somehow people put up with me. And it just made me fall in love with all of that world. And so I went to college for journalism, and I worked in the newspaper. Then I worked at a homeless shelter, and in all of those professions, I got to use my writing and graphic design that I learned in college to just to do just about everything. So right now, although I do incorporate those things to my full-time job, whenever somebody needs a job done where I can help, I will, of course, volunteer my services if somebody needs them. Or she says, sell my
Offer.
services if
Offer.
somebody needs them.
Offer. Yeah, there you go.
But I don't think it's developed fully yet into a business, but it is definitely something that I'm passionate about.
Nice.
Definitivamente cartas de restaurante, logotipos, páginas de internet, playeras, todo lo hace. Traducciones.
Yeah, it's just I heard somebody said once that you can figure out what you love if when you're doing it, you don't want to eat or go to the bathroom. Whenever I'm designing something or writing something, I'm in that zone where like you just feel like
You forget.
yeah, there could be a meteorite falling outside your window, but you're like
Enfocado.
so like it doesn't feel like work. So those are the things I love to do, and yeah,
Right.
I'm fortunate to be able to do them almost every day.
Yeah.
Y
and-
se me está ocurriendo que los dos son creativos entonces, ¿verdad?
Exacto.
Everybody in this table is creativo.
Yeah. I think creativity it's a really broad word, and I feel like everybody has a little bit of it, and it's just a matter of developing into something that you like, or love.
So I was reading a little bit some of the answers that you gave us whenever we sent you that email, and then, I see here, Izzy, that you're inspired by other creative thinkers and producers. Lo and behold, here we are.
I do, and
Here with the
that is
crop.
Yes.
I love
Good
learning
with the
about
crop.
other people, and sometimes, I have to be careful because people may think that you're trying to learn their secrets or their ins and outs of the business, but it's not. Like, I genuinely just want to learn everything. If I could shadow someone, like on a day of work, that would be amazing. That's just how I'm inspired, how I like to learn. I like to know how people do things, what makes them tick, what is it that, makes them, what inspires them and what makes them work harder for, whatever is it that they do. So that's just the way that I function.
Yeah, and you like to be involved in the whole process of it all.
Of how
like.
things,
The
how things are
hands-on.
developed. Yes, I like to see how, like, all the ins and outs of how things are made. So that's true.
All right. So you actually started a store also. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because you're doing pretty good in there.
Yes. So that was my first, that was when I officially said to myself, okay, I'm not going to be ashamed of this. I'm actually going to make this official, because when I started, it was just me selling headbands, just a mom, and everybody loved it. And I didn't want to call it a business at first because I was afraid. I was just like, this is not a business. I'm just having fun. I'm just making headbands for my daughter. And soon enough, I had so many orders that I was busy. And then I started, selling kids' jewelry. And then that took off. And then I was like, well, maybe I can incorporate other things. And that's when clothes came in.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about failing forward, there was a lot of aspects that, we can incorporate about Loved Up into into this conversation. And so, long story short, I accumulated a lot of followers on Instagram. And then all of a sudden, I offered clothes and I'm selling. I didn't even have a website, and here I am making a living and supporting my daughter selling clothes on Instagram by just having people either send me a message on, through DM. But at that time, it was all about comments. It was all about, leaving your PayPal email under a comment like, this is what I want, the size that you want, and send me an invoice, and people would pay the invoice, and I would ship their order. And that was my first real life experience in business. And at that time, I didn't realize what I had. I didn't fully appreciate it, I feel like. And now that I look back at it, I truly believe that I was successful and that I built something. Later on, I let thoughts get in my head. I'm very much into handmade, which again goes back with supporting creatives.
Mm-hmm.
So I let thoughts get in my head like, oh, well, what I'm not doing, it's not ethical. Like, how is it that I like handmade, but I'm selling clothes that it's not handmade or it's not wholesale? And then all of a sudden I stopped. And I don't, up until this day, I ask myself, like, why did I stop?
Yeah.
But I don't dwell on that. And now, that's just one of the things that you learn from. And now I just want to have my own designs, and it's something that I'm working on. And sometimes things like that need to happen for you to redirect yourself and come back stronger. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I really love the fact that you said that it's not how many times you fail that sticks in your head, but actually how often you rise above the challenges.
Yes.
I thought that was amazing, because that's what we talked about often about failing forward is fear and failure are part of life.
yes.
So how do you keep going despite that? So I really love that you made that comment, because it's like, okay, that happened, but guess what? I got up and I did something else. So I grew from the headbands to the children's clothing or to the adult clothing, or, I mean, even the Instagram thing, that's huge, because, I mean, you really sell stuff on Instagram.
I do. So I'm all over the board. I love to sell or resell luxury items as well. So I'm always grasping for something. It's not just about Loved Up. A lot of people say, like, you just have to focus on one thing, but I feel like, maybe a lot of things can, bring you or lead you to something that you are meant to do. And for me, like you were saying, I really don't know. For me, it's just more, all about ego. Like, a lot of people, when they fail, their ego gets hurt. And for me, like, I'm not afraid to accept the blame. Like, okay, I failed because I didn't hold myself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, I'm not embarrassed to try again, or to say, oh, I should have done this differently, or I should have listened to my mentor or whoever advised me to do this. So I think for me, it's just, I just take ego out the door and I just go for it again. Like, I'm not embarrassed to fail again. I'm not afraid to say I did this wrong and I'm going to try again. So that's just the way that I, go about doing things all over again. If I don't do it right the first time.
And I can appreciate that you said that, because, I mean, there are people out there, mentors, family members, friends, they really want the best for us. And they have all this great advice that they want to share with us, and because, I mean, they truly want us to succeed.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to experience things for yourself.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, every time you get advice, this is someone else's perspective, their perception based on their experiences, their challenges, and sometimes you don't have the same challenges, or oftentimes you have to go through challenges yourself so that you can identify, what am I here to do? But you said something that I really, really liked, and is that you don't have to pick one thing. You know what I mean? Like, as I have a wife who's a creative, and she loves everything creative, right? And I can appreciate the freeness that comes with being a creative and saying to yourself, I love all this stuff. I want to be a part of it. Going back to what you said, like, you like to be part of the development challenge, the development phase. where things are being created. Like I can appreciate that, and I think that there's some freedom that comes with that. So I think it's liberating too.
Right, right. What about you, Carlos? I know you have some amazing stories about bouncing back and failing forward
So
and
Carlos,
Yeah,
embracing that.
I was gonna say, well, Carlos has an inspiration that goes back to his homeland.
yeah.
So tell us about that. It
Forgot what I
says
said.
so. It looks like you said when you're confused, when you're depressed, when you're feeling anxious, you simply don't know what to do. You go back to Colombia. You look back
Yeah.
at your parents, blood,
I
sweat, and
love
tears.
Yeah. Well, I think like in a way, it's like something that makes me privileged. Like I actually feel a lot of times as immigrants, maybe they portray us as people who, have less or are disadvantaged, and a lot of times that's the case. But I think that where you're an immigrant, you have this advantage that not a lot of people have. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that it is an advantage, and that is that you constantly look back at home and where you came from, and that gives you like this huge push of energy and wanting to do better
Yeah.
because you know what's on the other side and how hard life was over there. So, even though it's not like something physical, I think like for a lot of us, just that thought of like, my God, we had so little back at home, and now we're in the US. I don't care what you want me to do. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna sell on Instagram, or I'm gonna start a restaurant or a podcast, because we're like, what's the worst that can happen? I constantly think like, if the worst that can happen is that I have to go back home and sleep on the streets of Medellin where there's beautiful weather, that's okay. Then, whatever. That's the worst that can happen. I might as well, give it my best, because I know, like, I remember, just how hard my parents worked, and all of my friends to this day that I still keep in touch with from Colombia, they're working so hard, and I'll say most of the time, I'm like, they're working so much harder than I am. Like, they're just have this survival mentality of like, we'll do whatever it takes to move forward. So yeah, sometimes I'm like a little depressed. I'm like, oh, this didn't work out, or like, this person was mean to me, and I'm just like, okay, snap out of it. Like, you came from Colombia, you're here. There's so many opportunities. There's so many things you can do.
Right.
And it's not that it's bad to have those feelings of doubt and to feel lazy sometimes, or to feel defeated sometimes. We'll go through those feelings, but it is important to catch yourself and remember a little bit of perspective. Like, there's a lot of other people out there going through the same or worse stuff, and they're getting ahead in life. So, yes, kind of snap out of it. I remember telling a younger colleague of mine a while back. She was still in college, and this was not. This is gonna sound a little harsh, but I remember telling her in a loving way, like, life's got to beat you up a little bit, like. Like, you just gotta wait for life to beat you up, because life is gonna beat you up a little bit, and you're gonna be okay. Like, it's gonna beat you up, or maybe a lot, but like, once you come out of the other side of that, and you've been through all of this, you really look back, you're like, oh my gosh, I can do so much more now, because all of those things happened back then. Like, every single thing that I can think of that made me cry or made me hurt or whatever, like, I can point at those specific things right now and be like, this is why I'm better now. And, I think, like, we're so afraid of pain that we try to avoid it, but, like, pain is what makes you learn, you know? And that's not to sound, like, sadistic or anything like that, but it truly is the one thing that will make you learn, It's when you go through some kind of struggle, so.
And that's what I was talking about, embracing failure, right? Because I almost feel like failure is like a little graph or a plot where you can see and pinpoint those exact things that cause you to either react or act responsibly, so that you're like, oh my gosh, like, I hated being in the situation, but now that I'm out of it, or in retrospect, had I gone in that direction, these 5 things were worse that could have happened to me. Or a good thing that I went this way, because now I met this one person, right? So even like when I think about how you met Leah, that was like, you weren't sure if you were going to go to the party or not go to the party, and then you met her, right?
Wait, you can't just, like, what's the story there? You can't just like say that and
when you turn off the camera, to the story.
So go ahead, share that with us if you don't mind.
No. But I met Lee at a party that I wasn't sure I was going to go to.
Okay.
I will tell you the rest of the story. But it was so amazing because, I met this wonderful woman.
Mm-hmm.
But I was literally just enjoying myself, being alone, actually, like, being away from everybody, just working hard. And, like, I feel like when you're least expecting something, that's the best time for things to happen. And I think like that was the case in meeting my significant other, that like I wasn't looking for it. It just kind of like happens. You just crash and you just let life, happen. And so it's
Enjoy
really
the
cool.
ride.
Yeah.
Well, I think that comes with, being flexible. And I think when when you fail, you have to be flexible. Like, in your ways. Don't get set in your ways. Like, you probably didn't want to go to that party, but you got out of your way and went. And I think that's also important in failing forward, because sometimes we're just so stuck in, this is the way that I wanted it, and this is what I envisioned, and this is, how I want things to progress. But sometimes that's just not how life works, and sometimes you just have to, go with the flow. So being flexible, it's important too, and going forward.
And also realizing that it's temporary. I mean, I don't know who even said this quote, so just to get it out there, this is not my quote.
Great master.
It's not my quote.
Junior Lara.
But someone once said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop. And like to your point, like just get out of your way. Like don't just like bathe in it. Don't just sit there and just like bask in the pain. Just realize that this is gonna pass. And like you guys have both said some really great things today. And a lot of it was looking back now. Hindsight is 2020, right? So realizing that even when you're going through the challenge right now, someday that's going to be in the past, and someday you're going to say, looking back now, I realized that I learned. So maybe it's just kind of like projecting yourself into the future and saying, this is going to pass, just like anything else. This is going to pass. What's the lesson? And focusing on that too,
Yeah, I like the part that we talked about letting go of your ego.
Yeah.
But I would also like to ask both of you, how do you, or what kind of recommendations do you have for when people are in the stuff to ask for help or to keep going?
Repeat the question. When people
So
are
like when you're in the stuff, when you're struggling, when you're failing, or you're feeling like you're failing, how do you keep going? Because we talk about just keep going, but sometimes that's difficult. So, and I think part of the issue sometimes is we're afraid to ask for help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because once you ask for help, that you're corroborating that you've failed. You don't ask for help unless you're stuck. So, when you reach out to someone, you're pretty much letting them know, hey, I'm having a little trouble. And again, it goes back to ego. Sometimes we don't like to do that. For me, I'm always so excited about talk, because I have so many ideas. I'm just like your wife. Like, I have all these things that I want to do. And for me, like, I want to talk about them, but I've learned, sometimes you just gotta like hold back on things and let things develop and marinate a little bit, before you go on and talk about other things. But, but going back to your question, I think one thing that I've learned is always hold yourself accountable to your failures. Like, don't go place blame on other people. Like, always hold yourself accountable. Like, this is my fault. It doesn't matter how many people were involved in the project, how many people you contracted to do things, how many people you hired. You alone are responsible for whatever happens in your life. Did you ask the right questions? Did you look up the resume before you hired them? Sometimes we just go about our ways like, oh, I like you, you were recommended, but did you do your due diligence? I mean, you're investing money, you're investing time. Like, did you do your research? Did you listen to your mentors or people that are in your life? Did they give you any clues? These are all the things that sometimes it's so easy to go back and say, oh, like, it's just because he didn't come on time, or he didn't do this, or she told me to do this. But at the at the end of the day, it all falls back on you, because if anything happens, it's because you allowed it to happen, and it was your responsibility to hold the people that you're placing blame on accountable. Right. You didn't hold those people accountable. They failed you, and therefore it's your fault. So for me, that is just my ultimate, rule of thumb when it comes to, failing and going and moving forward. It's just accepting the blame.
I think that's beautiful, and I think I would just add one thing, which is like, once you are like, I own up to this happening, like being kind to yourself, like not
absolutely.
dwelling, not
Definitely.
dwelling on the fact, like, yeah, you made a mistake.
You made a mistake, but let's move on. Like, let's make this better. But I do think that there comes like this awakening when you stop telling yourself lies about why it didn't work, and you tell yourself this was my fault. When you own up to it, like you wake up and then you need to make yourself proud. Then it goes back to the ego, and it's like, okay, I failed, but now I'm going to do this better. And I think that's what comes with the whole owning it. It's just another level of awakening. So.
Yeah, and I think also too, like you said, once you own up to it, now you could go to the next step. All right, now what? What's my next clue or what's my next step to make sure that I'm moving forward on whatever idea that I'm working on.
Yeah, it's almost like closure.
Right.
When you own it, it's closure to either continue to do it better or look for other ways to do it.
Yeah.
So.
And how often would you say that sometimes you have to realize in the people around you to help pick you up sometimes? I mean, I like the fact that you said, that you hold yourself accountable, and I love the fact that you said, don't be too hard on yourself. But the people around you, do they matter? Does it matter who you hang with? Does it matter who's in your circle? Or is it all on you 100% of the time?
Absolutely. My favorite quote is, if you're the smartest in the group, you're hanging out in the wrong crowd. It's just the wrong crowd. I can never be the smartest person of the group. I always seek knowledge, and it definitely matters who you're hanging out with. I'm a true believer that el que se junta con un perro, a ladrar aprende.
Ya tú sabes.
Sea bueno, sea malo, no importa lo que sea, siempre tienes que andar con gente buena. Y que sean mejor que tú, que te puedan enseñar.
Exacto.
Y que te puedan llevar a niveles que tú no conoces o que tal vez ni te imaginabas que
Ahí está,
existían.
directamente. Cuando se inspira, habla en español.
Sí.
I love it. Yes, maybe. Yeah. I like it.
It goes back to the Latinos, Latinoness that we were talking about.
It's almost like
sometimes
when
you
that
have
Spanish song comes on.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
You want to say something profound. It just sounds better in Spanish.
It does. It really does.
Hey, it's the most romantic language.
Yes. 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
No biases here.
No,
None of
absolutely
us.
not.
What about you, Carlos? What are your thoughts? Does it matter who you hang with? You agree? Disagree?
Yes, I also think that life will send you people that you might be like, why is this person around me? I am so annoyed, or they're not bringing something good. But I think even those people can teach you something, and so you can't avoid who life sends you. I mean, you can definitely choose circles you want to be a part of, amazing mentors and people that you're surrounded yourself with. But there are so many times that we get a phone call or we have to deal with someone who's really difficult. You're just very, very difficult. And we all do it. This is not a sign of being good or bad, but we all get annoyed and we place blame on that person for troubles. This person's sucking the life out of me or whatever. But I think if we stop to think what is the situation teaching me? Sometimes it's you're learning so much more than anybody else around your life when you're around this person that may be difficult. I think that you just never know how life goes back and turns that into something that's a positive situation. I don't know. Whether it was when I was in the newspaper or, when I was dealing with a client, when I was dealing with a superior that I thought this is not a great situation to be around. I mean, again, still to this day, I point back to that personal situation where I'm glad that happened. Mm-hmm. It was painful. I hated this person, or I felt very strongly about this person at the time. But now I'm because I dealt with them, now I have experience on how to deal with that particular situation. And there's still, who knows what else is ahead? Who knows who I'm going to meet? Yeah. Who's going to be a pain in the butt? But it really, I mean, again, it's all about the scars that you get. Gabriela knows I do some kickboxing and stuff just recently, and again, every time you get hit, that's when you really understand the concept. Every time you're out there and you feel a little pain, it's your brain immediately now understands okay, this is what you're supposed to do.
Move in that direction, because you're gonna get hit.
Yeah, if you move right in front of the glove and this person punches you, you're never gonna do it again because your brain now understands it for real. And I think I'm talking about pain or failure or good people or bad people. I feel that those are things that are very how do you say it? Like they're not real. Good or bad
no.
is not real. Painful or not, it's not real. Like it's just on what you do afterwards. You know, like
Yeah. How you react to it.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
like, I mean, if it wasn't for pain, we wouldn't be here. You know, if it wasn't for the pain of growing up or like learning how to ride a bicycle or whatever. So I think you sometimes will choose who you surround yourself with, but many times life is just going to drop a relative or, you know,
Coworker.
el primo or la tía chismosa.
hijos.
La
Yeah.
vecina.
Like, yeah, o la vecina. Yeah. La vecina peleando con su novio. Like, you're like, why me? Like, and that's a thought that we all have. Like, why is this happening to me? You know, and it's because that's the way life is. And then you just have to deal with it and then know that later on you'll be better for having dealt with it.
Right, right. I feel like, to your point, there are people who are placed in our lives to help us get a PhD in life. You know, you're like, they're here. Their main goal is, okay, what's my lesson? So I love that you share that. And I want to thank the two of you from the bottom of my heart to, first of all, for coming here and for exposing yourself the ways you have. I mean, this is amazing the way that you guys just say, you know what, I make mistakes and I learn from them. And guess what? I'm going to continue to make mistakes. But here's my story. And hopefully what I'm sharing here today is going to help other people, embrace their mistakes better, essentially.
Wait, is this podcast over? Are you like
I
wrapping
know,
it up?
Almost.
It's been only like 2 minutes.
Almost.
It was
So-
goodbye.
so
I was
we're-
like, sad, like, is it over?
Yeah, why are you
So-
saying goodbye?
So we are having such a good time. It's been 32 minutes, believe it or not.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
32 minutes. That's how much of a good time we're having. But if you have more to share, I mean, by all means, what more would you like to share?
I would like actually for them both to share because we asked them a couple of questions and they both had great answers to what would be advice that they would give other people.
Oh, yes, of course.
So if you guys could share that, I know you want me to remind you or
Advice
you
about what?
Advice that you could impact on the audience, and you said you can both be kind and stand firmly for what you believe. And I love that because oftentimes we feel that we can only be one or the other. So will you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think this was truly a realization that I've had in this last couple of years, thanks to communications training. If I can give a shout out to Angel Jimenez and Judy Ryan, who've done some amazing communications training here at the Hispanic Chamber. I used to have this sense of like, okay, the people who stand up for themselves seem very aggressive, and I am not an aggressive person. And I always felt like those who said exactly what they wanted, like at a restaurant or whatever, they always came across to me as like being this person who was aggressive. Not necessarily bad, but just who had an attitude that
hard.
They didn't care. And I'm always like wanting to make sure I don't hurt other people's feelings. But then after having this communication story, I realized that you can have both. You can demand what you want without putting the other person down. You can tell somebody, I understand where you're coming from. I feel your pain, or I understand the words that you're saying, and I connect with you. And I also want this for myself. And that has been like one of the biggest lessons I've learned the last couple of years. Because before I always felt like, either conform to whatever somebody else was telling you to do, or be very aggressive and kind of like in a fighting stance of like, I either get this or I'm going to be mad.
So it's winning or losing. But
So you can still, even in the most basic things, like somebody sends you the steak and it's well done rather than raw. You don't have to be mad at the server. You don't have to tell him that he doesn't know how to do their job or whatever. You can tell him, hey, I understand if this was a mistake. I really love my steak medium rare. And if there's a possibility to change it, that's great. I really appreciate that. And you're standing up for what you want, right? I know this is like a silly example, but I'm hungry. So, and you can still like be firm on that. Like, I just really like this without making him feel like, like he doesn't know what he's doing, because you don't have to do those things. So you can always don't hold yourself back from telling people what you want, but also don't put people down to get what you want, because I think more times than not that won't lead you anywhere.
Yeah.
So
I have something to add to that. It's probably not in the same realm, but I think it connects in a way that, sometimes we're also so caught up in the negative. It's like, oh my gosh, I did this wrong. But like, we don't take the time to celebrate the small victories. And, we think that we need to make a certain amount of money, or that our business needs to be this size, or that we need to have this storefront, or that we need to have these, many followers on our, page, or, however is it that we measure success. I think sometimes we just need to take a step back and just celebrate even like small everyday life, victories. If you got up a little early, or if you, made a healthy meal, or if you took the time to smile to someone, whatever it is, just, just give yourself a little pat on the back and just say, hey, I did that today. Like, for me, it's just, really hard for me to stay focused. So I've been writing things down, and I'm honestly, I don't know how to use an agenda. So I've been teaching myself, and every time I write something down, I'm like, oh, look at me. Like, I have like 3
So
events
easy.
that I wrote down. And, and like, I feel proud of little achievements like that.
That's
and I
awesome.
think it's so important to just, just be, like you said, when I was saying, like, hold yourself accountable, but at the same time, just be kind to yourself, and also break away from whatever is it that's bothering you, whether it's a failure or just something small. Just break away and come back with a clear mind, and you'll probably find the answer, because sometimes we're just like, our mind is just so cluttered that we can't even see clear sometimes, because we're so focused on the negative. So that's my food for thought.
I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
you also had another little nugget of advice when you talked about we all want to win.
Yeah, I think, and we all do, and like I was saying, we all just want to celebrate the big stuff, and we all want to win, but sometimes, failing is part of it, and yes, we want to win, but in those winnings, like, we also have to fail before we get to the, to the top. So, and you just got to keep trying, because only when you try, you win.
Right.
And that's just how it is. That's just life.
Yeah.
As cliche as that sounds.
I don't think it sounds cliche. I think it sounds great. But just to quote Izzy here, we all want to win. By trying not to fail, you lose every time.
That's right.
I love that.
When you
Quoted
stay in
Izzy
safe.
Polanco.
Izzy Polanco,
When you
quote
try
it.
to stay in the bubble, yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
So I know we're going to go ahead and wrap up because we are going on our 40-minute mark. But can you both share how people can get a hold of you, whether it's your social media pages or your company pages, so that if anybody's interested in reaching out, that they could do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my email is izzy@getfoundstl.com. I also have a page where I encourage women to embrace their curly hair. It's more about fashion, motherhood, co-parenting, and I am, so am Izzy, IEZZYP. That's Instagram. And again, Izzy@getfoundstl.com.
I'm pretty sure I'm still the only Carlos Restrepo in St. Louis, so if you just Google that, I don't have
Google me.
I don't have a business page, but I did brand my social media with Carlos R and then the word reporter. So like Carlos Restrepo reporter, and so like if you type that in Google, you get
Let me just make sure that I'm following you.
you get a hit.
All right.
Yeah, and my Facebook, don't get scared. Like, you can get to it by facebook.com/Carlos R Reporter. But then you'll see Carlos Andres Restrepo Torres, and that's like my full name, so my family in Colombia can find me.
It's still him. It's
It's
still
a
him.
very common name, believe it or not, so I need to put all 4 names.
Fun.
Yeah, so I need to put all 4 names to make sure that my friends and family back home can find me. But really, just find me in person the 3rd Thursday of the month at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Business After Hours, because you can. If I get a friend request from you, I'm gonna be like, "Who are you?"
Who's
you
this?
know, and whatever. Just come find me in person.
Is this a good person God's putting in my
let's
life?
start.
Or is this the PhD person?
Yeah, come watch some soccer. You can find me at the soccer park too.
And we're also going to put Izzy's and Carlos' information in our post.
So we'll definitely get stalkers.
Yes, you will. Like it or not.
Yay!
As
So
long
we-
as they're not creepy, it's okay.
Right.
We can't make any promises.
I'll
So-
send them your way.
No, please. So we have one last question for you guys. And there are no wrong answers at all, just like this entire conversation. And that is, as you guys know, the name of our podcast is Auténtico. But auténtico can mean different things to different people. So would you mind sharing with us? We can start with Izzy if
Start
you're
with
okay
Izzy,
with
like,
that.
drink some water.
Yeah, sure. So we can start with Izzy. And can you tell us what auténtico means to you?
Ooh, that's very, yeah, that's a good question. I think just auténtico is just not being afraid to be yourself. Just, it doesn't matter what other people think about you. It doesn't matter how other people perceive you. It's just always believing or sticking up for what you believe and just not caring, just staying true to yourself. And the word it's self-explanatory. Like you said, it could mean a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I think it is what it is. It's just staying true to yourself.
Nice.
And like we all have roots, and it's just maintaining those roots alive, nice, and deep. So
Very cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah.
What about you, Carlos? What does auténtico mean to you?
Sorry, authentic was acknowledging that sometimes things are not going well. I'm coming back from a cold, so yeah. I'm sorry. So this is authentico.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
Sometimes you can't do anything about it. You're just you're coughing or you're making a fool out of yourself or whatever, but you acknowledge that you're just being you, and that's just how life is. So you just have to embrace life and not let it bring you down, no matter like where you are. This is from New York. New York cold. So anyway, just acknowledge that you have flaws. Like I feel like whenever I see someone who I think like they look kind of fake, is because I always see them not acknowledging their flaws or like pretending to be perfect.
Ooh, that's a good
Yes,
point.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And when you're authentic, people see that because I think we can all see, we all want to relate. The more flaw and vulnerable we seem to the world a lot of times, the more I'm like, I like this person because they're not pretending to be somebody else. So, your flaws may be a positive, so like embrace them. They may be that thing that actually makes other people want to be around you because they know like I can relate to you. And we all have the same things happen to us generally in life. We go through a lot of the same heartbreaks, a lot of the same difficult situations. Sometimes we go through a lot of the same sickness. We'll get a cold or we break our arm. And when we find someone who's like, it's okay, it's not you, it happens to me too. You're like, really?
Mhm.
Whatever that is, like even like being fired from a job. If you feel like that's so bad and then you meet someone who's like, it's okay, I've been fired from a job too. You're like, wow, thank you, because you open up to that. So it's just being true to your own vulnerabilities and knowing that there's nothing wrong with that. Excuse me. Sorry. As I say that, I probably need to shut up now.
It doesn't get any more authentic than this, by the way.
This is so true. This is so true. So we are coming to you raw, being authentic.
Need some cough drops now.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, thank you so much again.
Yes.
Believe it or not, it's been 45 minutes.
Yay. That's
That's
how.
how-
Soccer match.
Time
That's
flies
how-
when you're having fun.
Isn't it? I mean, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Right. So seriously though, thank you so much for
Thank you.
exposing yourself. You guys are some amazing leaders. And I can guarantee you that there's a lot of people out there that will learn from your experiences and your insight. And sometimes you just got to step up. And I mean, that's why we started this podcast, Gabi and I, is we wanted to be able to highlight the leaders in our community and share your stories, which is exactly what you guys did. And you guys took it home. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
well, no,
you.
I actually want to say thank you guys for stepping up to the plate and actually representing our community in St. Louis because, as we know, there's a need for it, and I'm just happy that you guys are, doing it. So it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
very much. All right, so we are going to wrap up. We're going to be sharing Izzy's and Carlos' contact information, social media contact information. Thank you guys for joining us today. We are Auténtico Podcast. Gabriela Ramirez Arellanos and myself come to you every single Wednesday. Stay tuned once a month for these roundtable discussions where we're going to keep bringing to you the leaders in the community to share their stories and discuss different topics. So let us know if you like it. Please share on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. You can find us on authenticopodcast.com and on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere. I mean, did I miss a place?